What's up everyone, Kriddle here, back again with some more Diablo 4. Now that the beta weekend is over, I've had a chance to play and level all classes to 25 and want to give my thoughts on each. In this video, we'll be checking out the Druid. The Druid is a versatile class which can be played in a variety of playstyles, namely melee, range caster, or companion. All of these styles were fairly balanced within the class itself, but they all underperformed when compared to other classes. Like other classes, you start off by choosing a basic attack. These attacks are weak, but always available, and are used to generate spirit, which is the Druid's primary resource. The first of the basic attacks is Earth Spike, which impales the target with physical damage. Earth Spike can be enhanced to have a chance to stun the target for a short duration, and upgraded further to summon a second spike when hitting an immobilized or stunned enemy, or fortified for a percentage of your base life when it damages an enemy who is stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. Wind Shear, really the only basic range attack for the Druid, which conjures a piercing blade of wind that does physical damage. Wind Shear can be enhanced to have a chance to make enemies vulnerable for a short duration, and further upgraded to increase your movement speed for each enemy hit up to a maximum of 20%, or grant additional spirit for each enemy hit beyond the first. Storm Strike causes your weapon attacks to damage your target and 3 surrounding enemies while also giving you damage reduction for a short duration. It is also the only basic attack that doesn't do physical damage but lightning damage instead. You can enhance Storm Strike to have a chance to immobilize all enemies hit for a short duration, and a high chance to make enemies vulnerable or chain up to 2 additional targets. Claw shapeshifts you into a werewolf and attacks a single enemy for physical damage and can be enhanced for increased attack speed. Claw can be further upgraded for a chance to attack twice or to apply poison to your target. And lastly, Maul, which shapeshifts you into a werebear attacking all enemies in front of you for physical damage and can be enhanced to fortify you for a percentage of your base life. Maul can be further upgraded to increase the range and radius or have a small chance to knock enemies down for a short duration. Of these abilities, I found Storm Strike to be my favorite for most builds except range, in which case I would use Wind Shear. Maul would be good for some melee builds, but its attack is too slow, with Claw and Earth Spike only hitting a single target. Next up, we have core abilities, which spend spirit generated by your basic attacks and where you'll get most of your damage as a druid unless you decide to use companions. Lightning Storm conjures a growing lightning storm that damages enemies each strike, with increasing strikes the longer it is channeled. You can enhance Lightning Storm to preserve its size for 4 seconds after it's channeled. For me, this is a must-have if you plan to use the ability. Further upgrading Lightning Storm gives you a chance to immobilize enemies or add an additional lightning strike. Tornado conjures a tornado that damages enemies in its path, which can be enhanced for a chance to spawn an additional tornado on each cast. Further upgrades include slowing enemies damaged by the tornado or a chance for targets to become vulnerable. Pulverize shapeshifts you into a werebear and slamming the ground, dealing damage to surrounding enemies. Enhancing causes Pulverize to overpower every 10 seconds so long as you stay healthy. Further upgrades will stun enemies when they are overpowered or reduce the damage enemies deal that are hit with Pulverize. Shred shapeshifts into a werewolf, performing a 3-hit combo with each hit dealing greater damage. Enhance Shred to gain attack speed and self-heal with each hit. Other upgrades include adding poison to the 3rd hit of the combo or increase Shred's critical strike damage while also adding a dash to the 2nd and 3rd hits in the combo. And Landslide, which crushes enemies between 2 pillars of earth and can be enhanced to immobilize targets after Landslide damages enemies 4 times. Additional upgrades creates Terra Motes each time you immobilize or stun an enemy. Terra Motes cause a guaranteed critical strike and 40% bonus critical damage. Or cause an additional pillar to form when striking an immobilized or stunned enemy. Of these abilities, Lightning Strike and Tornado can make for great range builds so long as you can generate enough spirit to keep them active, but I found Pulverize to work best for me. Druid has some great defensive abilities, and I found myself using 2 or 3 of them in every build. Earthen Bulwark surrounds you with rocks, granting a barrier that absorbs a large portion of your base life, and enhancing it makes you unstoppable. Upgrades fire Rock Shrapnel when Earthen Bulwark is destroyed or expires, dealing damage to surrounding enemies with increased damage based on barrier bonuses, or grants Fortify as a percentage of your base life. Cyclone Armor is a passive that reduces non-physical damage by 20% and can be activated to rapidly expand the wind, pushing enemies back and damaging them. Enhancing causes enemies pushed by its active ability to be slowed by 70%. Further upgrades allow the armor to increase damage reduction every 10 seconds or make enemies knocked back become vulnerable. Debilitating Roar shapeshifts you into a werebear and reduces nearby enemy damage dealt by 50% with an enhanced effect that fortifies you for 22% of your base life. Its upgrades also slows enemies by 40% or heals you for 4% of your maximum life. And Blood Howl, which shapeshifts you into a werewolf and heals you for 20% of your maximum life with an enhanced effect that will allow kills to reduce the cooldown by 1 second. Upgrades can also generate 20 spirit or increase your attack speed by 15% for a short time. I found all 4 of these abilities useful for various builds, but I mostly used Earthen Bulwark with no upgrades and Debilitating Roar with its Fortify and Healing upgrades most often. Next up are companions, which I felt were a build of their own, and it was best to use all 3 together. Trying to use one companion just felt like a waste of skill points and ability slots. Wolves summon 2 wolf companions that bite enemies for small damage. It can be activated to focus on a single enemy for a larger hit. You can enhance the wolves to deal greater damage to immobilized, stunned, slowed, or poisoned enemies, and give your wolves an attack speed increase when you critically hit, or a chance to have your wolves fortify you on a lucky hit. Vine Creeper creates a vine that periodically poisons a random enemy and can be activated to immobilize and poison all enemies surrounding you. Its enhancement increases the immobilized duration of the active ability and increase your critical hit chance against enemies strangled by the vine, or increase the duration on the active poison. The final companion is the Raven, which causes a raven to periodically attack enemies for small damage. It can be activated to create a swarm of ravens which deals damage over time. Enhancing the Raven increases your critical hit chance against enemies hit by the Raven with upgrades that increase the number of ravens by 2 or cause enemies inside the swarm to become vulnerable. The last set of abilities require no spirit to cast, but instead have a cooldown. Hurricane forms a hurricane around you that deals damage over time to surrounding enemies and can be enhanced to also slow enemies hit. Upgrade for a chance to make enemies vulnerable or cause enemies affected to deal less damage. Boulder rolls a boulder that knocks back and crushes enemies in its path. It can be enhanced to slow or even stun enemies at the end of its path if it's overpowered. Additional upgrades gives Boulder an increased crit chance if you have Fortify when cast, or increase Boulder's crit chance each time it deals damage. Trample shapeshifts you into a werebear as you become unstoppable and charge forward, dealing damage and knocking enemies back. If an enemy was knocked into terrain, they take additional damage and are stunned. Enhancing deals bonus damage, however the damage is reduced for each enemy hit after the first. Upgrades include gaining Fortify or Spirit when cast. The final cooldown ability is Rabies, which shapeshifts you into a werewolf and applies poison to your target. Enemies infected by rabies will spread rabies to surrounding enemies. Enhancing increases the damage of rabies over its lifetime with upgrades that can shorten its duration while still dealing the same total poison damage or increase the rate at which the rabies spreads. And finally, that brings us to the Druid's ultimate abilities. Petrify encases all nearby enemies in stone, stunning them for 3 seconds and gives you 25% increased crit damage to them. You can further upgrade Petrify for a longer duration and grant 25 spirit when killing a petrified enemy. Cataclysm creates a massive storm that follows you while tornadoes and lightning knock back and damage enemies. Upgrades include an increased duration, and lightning strikes makes enemies vulnerable. Lacerate shapeshifts you into a werewolf, causing you to become immune and quickly dash 10 times between enemies in an area, dealing a large amount of damage. Upgrading heals you for each critical strike and causing the first hit to be a guaranteed critical strike with 150% increased damage. And Grizzly Rage, which turns you into a werebear for 10 seconds, giving you bonus damage and damage reduction. Bonus damage is increased for each second you stay in this form, and kills extend the duration by 1 second up to an additional 10 seconds. You can further upgrade Grizzly Rage to make you unstoppable and gain Fortify for every second Grizzly Rage is active. That's it for the Druid abilities. I personally found a couple viable builds with the Druid, namely Wind Shear with Tornadoes, a full companion build, and the one I ended up liking the most, which was a melee Pulverize build. The Pulverize build is what I've been showing in this video and consists of Storm Strike for basic attack and spirit gain. Every 10 seconds I can pulverize for massive damage, killing most enemies around me. For defensive abilities, I used Earthen Bulwark, Cyclone Armor, and Debilitating Roar. These not only increase my survivability, but also my damage as they cause Fortify, which gives Pulverize more damage through Overpower. I did have one skill slot available where I'd most likely put Grizzly Rage given more skill points, which would further increase my ability to gain Fortify and my overall damage output. As for other abilities, Trample would be good for mobility and some added CC, Rabies was great for a poison build, and the only other ultimate I liked was Cataclysm. Everything else seemed like a waste of ability slot when compared to other abilities. Overall, the Druid felt good to play, however when compared to other classes, it was by far the weakest. I am interested to see how the class changes once we have access to boons, which were not available in the beta. At this time, Druid is the last class on my list to play in the final release. Anyway, I'm Kriddle, and that's the Druid. I hope you enjoyed this video and it was informational. If so, smack that like button as it helps me a lot, and sub for more videos soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!